A few weeks ago, I was given this, and as has sort of become tradition on my channel, every time I get my hands on a crochet kit, we test it out and go through it together, which is what we're going to do in this video here today. Now, a cursory glance at this kit might tip off any Aussies as to where this is from. You may immediately recognize the Anko brand, and this was a gift from my sister, and I didn't even realize Kmart had crochet kits. I knew they had yarn at one point, but I'd never seen a crochet kit before. And if I'm gonna be real honest with you guys, the image on the front doesn't really fill me with confidence. Number one, that is just a really bad Photoshop job. It reminds me of those listings on like eBay, Amazon, those sort of places where you can just tell that the image used is a combination of 2 or 3 separate images just badly slapped together. And that's kind of the vibes this is giving off at the moment. Hopefully that is not reflective of the quality of the kit overall. But before we go any further, I will bring in the second camera so you all can get a good look at what's going on as well. I will save further thoughts on how this actually looks to later. But on the back, we have listed what should be included. So we've got 4 colored yarns, 1 crochet hook, 1 plastic needle, 1 ring stitch marker, 20 grams of fiber fill, and 1 instruction sheet. And let's see what we're rocking here. Make sure we've got all our supplies. So first things first, we have the stuffing. That's a bit squished, and I think we've just got the black yarn in there. That is everything, so all our supplies are included. So that is check 1 in the positive column, we're not missing anything. Admittedly, my experience with crochet kits is fairly limited. They're not something I purchase for myself. I just, go through them when I've been given them as gifts. But at least with the ones I've tried so far, I haven't had one in which any supplies were missing, which is a good thing. But just from my experience with other craft kits, and also anecdotally kits that like my nibblings have had, we have not been so fortunate in those situations. So there is always a part of me that when I've got my hands on a crochet kit, I expect at least something to be missing. And like 1 stitch marker, just the one. You couldn't provide 2. Kmart doesn't make enough money to supply 2 stitch markers in their kits. One thing that I do note that is missing, and it's not missing as in it was listed on the back and it's not present. It is missing, or I personally think this item should be included in a kit, and that's safety eyes. Like looking at the front, I think these are either crocheted or, it's hard to tell with the poor quality image and the bad Photoshop, but that's either embroidered on or crocheted and then sewed on. But like surely you could chuck in a couple of safety eyes into a kit like that. I think that would make it a bit easier, but that's just my opinion. So now that we've got all our supplies out, let's take a squiz at the instruction booklet. What's going on here? All right, mini crochet kit dino instruction manual. That's just our supplies again. We have basic crochet stitch diagram. All right, I was literally just about to say, well, these instructions don't seem too bad. They include full colored pictures. That is a step up from, I think, the last kit I did, which was that Amazon whale. That only included like a little booklet with written instructions. So this was a step up. But then I noticed, make a crochet rabbit. So this leads me to believe that there are more creatures in this little crochet kit series, one of which is a rabbit, and they just haven't edited the instructions properly. I'm hoping that that is only a typo in the title and I haven't accidentally gotten the instructions for a rabbit when I'm supposed to be making a dinosaur. I mean, going by the pictures, it is still a dino, but I don't know, you never know with these kind of kits. And to be honest, I was kind of hoping for something more with this kit, because of all the 3 I think I've done so far, the quality of those has been, I would say, kind of poor to average. There's nothing that's really stood out as being a good crochet kit. You know, and with Kmart, they do have some decent quality stuff. I was hoping this one might break the street and actually be a good kit, but I don't think we're off to a great start. But typo aside, the pattern itself might be fine. So let's test that out together here. So we're going to start off with the body. And first impressions of the yarn, it doesn't feel like too bad. It very much reminds me of milk cotton yarn. I got some of that off eBay years ago, and I've still got quite a bit to use up. But it feels nice, and if the cotton yarn that I'm comparing it to, that it feels similar to, is anything to go by, it should be nice to crochet with. One of the other kits that I tried out, they supplied acrylic yarn, and that was just, it was honestly awful to work with. It was very low quality stuff. You could just feel it. It honestly felt like just plastic bags turned into thread. It was planned, but not in the fun DIY way, and it made the experience so much worse than it needed to be, I think. So all that rambling to say, yeah, I'm glad this yarn at least feels, if not the best quality stuff, you don't expect the best quality stuff, but good enough for a kit like this. Now, one thing I didn't check was the hook size. So we are working with a 2.5mm hook. That's another issue I have with these kits. Why do they always supply such tiny hooks? Is it just cheaper to supply a 2.5mm hook as opposed to, say, a 3 or a 3.5? But to me, like, this hook seems a little bit small for this yarn. And I know with the amigurumi, you usually use half a size or one size down from the recommended hook size of the yarn. But yeah, this just seems a little bit too small for me. But perhaps that's just my personal preference. Who knows? Maybe they do it because the smaller hook size, you use slightly less yarn, and obviously that means that slightly less yarn they have to provide for you in the kit. Is that a bit too cynical? It's probably a bit too cynical, but gestures vaguely at the world. Anyway, stop talking, Lee. Start counting. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And there we go, the body piece, our first crochet part for this kit, is all complete. And the pattern itself has been pretty good so far. There's been no major issues that I've come across, like no typos within the pattern itself. I mean, there's still that rabbit one, but no major issues, because I'll be honest, one of my concerns, like going into these kits in this period of time that we're currently experiencing, is that it's just going to be AI. It's going to be AI generated nonsense. But so far, at least, I haven't really noticed any red flags, anything that would give me pause and make me go, has ChatGPT spat this out? But fortunately, no, I haven't noticed anything like that yet. A couple of things I have noted, however. One is, it's just kind of cute. Under the instructions, so where it says body, It then says, please use the green yarns. And I found that rather cute that they were so politely asking you to use the green yarn. And the one other thing that I have, it's more of and this is not so cute, it's more of a minor criticism, is at the end of the pattern, it doesn't specify to leave like a yarn tail for sewing. In the pictures, you can see that a tail has been left, but I personally think that that should be included in the written instructions as well, especially if you're a beginner and you just might not know that you will need some yarn to attach the body piece to the headpiece later on. I think it's important to include those instructions. While I think of it, there is another thing I've noticed that is kind of consistent across some of these kits I've used, and do bear in mind that my experience with kits is minimal, as I said at the start of the video, so maybe take this with a spoonful of salt. But I have noticed that a lot of these patterns that come with kits, well, one, they all seem to like to use the 2.5mm hook, which is a killer on my hands. But the thing I'm really focusing in on here is I find they like to start with 8 single crochet in a magic circle. And I just find that a bit odd, because there are certainly circumstances in which using 8 single crochet in a magic circle to begin is the right call. It makes a specific shape. But when you want like a nice, smooth, spherical shape that increases out nice and evenly, I find 6 single crochet is always the best bet. And just looking at the original picture here, that seems to be what they're going for, a rounded body piece. And when you use 8 single crochet in a magic circle to begin, this is what I find tends to happen. You get this, like, it's almost buckling. It forms ridges around your piece. Hopefully you can see that all right in the camera. And I don't know, maybe that's a me and my tension issue, but every time I start off a piece with 8 single crochet in a magic circle, that tends to happen. It's almost as if the stitches are too crowded. There's just too many of them. I really do think that starting off with 6 single crochet in a magic circle gives you a much nicer and smoother shape. So I don't know why these kits, again, in my fairly limited experience, they like to start off with 8 single crochet. I don't know. Thoughts? Why do they do this? And it's really not something I've come across in other free patterns that are available, or even paid patterns that are available online. Not to say that there's not any. I've certainly seen some, but I've just noticed it quite a bit in the kits that I've used. So I can't really come up with an explanation for that one. So if you know why, let me know down in the comments. Speaking of, the head starts off with 8 single crochet in a magic circle too. And that's the next piece we're going to be making. And having now completed that, I can say that I've run into my first major problem with this kit, and that is I have run out of stuffing. I used the entire bag that was provided, and that was not enough to fill the head properly. I even took out some of the stuffing that I had put in the body piece to add to the head, and I knew even before that I didn't have enough for the body. There is nowhere near enough stuffing to smooth out these ridges, and you can see that the same is true for the head. There's concaves and indents. Normally that is something I would just keep adding stuffing to until it smoothed out and you sort of got that nice spherical shape, but not in this case. And I did consider just grabbing some stuffing from my stash to add to it, but no, I'm going to use exactly what the kit has provided. And what the kit has provided is apparently not enough. Another thing that has not quite been elevated to problem status yet, but it has me a little bit concerned, is the needle. This needle, you can see it's one of those plastic like embroidery needles. It's fairly thick, and I've been crocheting with a very small hook, trying to weave in my end after I finished the final round of the head was a little bit more difficult than that process normally is, just because of the thickness of the needle. So that makes me worried that after I've crocheted all the smaller pieces, and there are quite a few of those, it's going to be somewhat difficult to sew those on, given that this is what I'm working with. Again, I do have my own supplies over here which I could use, and that would make the whole thing go a lot more smoothly, I think, but I want to stick to what the kit provided. But we will obviously figure that out for certain later. For now, I'm going to move on to the next parts, and those parts are the hands, the feet, and the horns. I've done all the little pieces from this pattern now, and the horns, they honestly aren't very different from the hands and the feet. Like, for horns, they are incredibly rounded. I do think the horn patterns that were provided, while they are easy and straightforward, they could have been shaped a lot better, because it's like really simple to make a little cone-shaped piece. Just a few tweaks to some of these rounds would have greatly improved the shape of these. And it's a little bit disappointing that I've ended up with bumps instead of horns, but oh well, that is what the pattern instructs to do, so that is what we must do in this kit. And at least with all those little bits out the way, I can now move on to the final piece of this pattern, and that is the tail. Side note, why wasn't this the shape used for the horns? This is the actual horns as written in the pattern. This is the start of the tail. That is the perfect horn shape. Why was that not used? The instructions are telling me that I am supposed to add stuffing to the tail, but I cannot do that as I don't have any stuffing left. I have acknowledged that I've run out of stuffing a couple of times now, and because this is a larger piece that I don't want to like sag and collapse in on itself, I am going to be adding a little bit to this from my stash. And you know what, I might even do that for the body as well. I can't do it to the head because I closed that piece up, but like this piece, you can very much tell that it's understuffed. But just so we all know, there was not enough stuffing provided in the kit to fill all of the pieces. Now that I have all those pieces though, I'm going to start assembling this thing, and just having a brief look at these assembly instructions, I think this is where a lot of my criticism for this kit is going to come from, because, second camera time, this is literally all the assembly instruction you get. You know what, let's just read through it together, and then I can go through my issues with this. 8, sewing all the parts. Number 1, use a plastic needle to sew the head and body together, then the tail, hands, legs, and horns. Once finished, hide the excess threads inside the body. That was step 1 of the assembly instructions. So all it tells you to do is sew the pieces together. It doesn't give you any round placement. It doesn't tell you where or how to position the pieces. And now your response to that might be, okay, but they've provided pictures, which yes, they have. But if you look really closely at most of these pictures, they're very distorted. I don't know if there's like a filter or a perspective warp being applied to them, or perhaps when they were resizing the images, they didn't maintain the aspect ratio. But the best example here is if you look at image 5 and then image 6. In image 5, you can see the dinosaur, the head and the body. The pieces look shorter and stretched out. So you compare what 5 looks like, the head there, and then you compare that to what number 6 looks like. That has been warped in some capacity. even like the individual stitches themselves look distorted. So that is really unhelpful when you're attempting to place pieces in the correct position. In conclusion, I do believe that in kits such as this, you do need to have more specific assembly instructions, especially, once more, if these are aimed for beginners, which while this kit doesn't specify that it is, at least from what I've seen, like that's the vibe I get. Let's be real, this is not aimed at advanced crocheters. And that was only part 1 of the assembly instructions. Part 2 is, please use the black yarns to sew an X on both sides of round 9 of the head as a dinosaur's eyes. Sew a equal sign in the middle of rounds 11 to 13 as the dinosaur's cheek. Couple of problems with this. Number 1, if you look really closely at the images here, that is a safety eye. That is 100% a safety eye. You can even see the shine where it is reflecting the light. So yeah, that is a safety eye. On the packaging itself, that's either some sort of embroidery or it is a crochet piece that has then been sewn down, neither of which are X's sewn to the side of round 9. So what it's telling you to do in the written portion is completely different from not only the picture in the assembly section, but also that is different again from the image on the front. And then you've got the second part of that sentence, which is not quite as egregious, I don't think, but it's like sew an equal sign. Perhaps they don't mean an exact, like an equal sign. They just might be using that to indicate lines, which they've done. And I've just got to ask, what is the point of that? I mean, it's supposed to be as the dinosaur's cheek, but I don't look at that and think, oh yeah, that's a cheek. If anything, to me, that gives off, like patchwork teddy bear vibes or like zombie vibes. But no, I definitely don't get cheek for that. So I find that to be just a little bit odd. And then lastly, because we're discussing the details, there is a mouth on here, which is not mentioned in the written section or shown in the images here. So that, blatant false advertising. There is no mouth in this pattern. But I will be following the assembly instructions as they are written here. So I'm going to be doing X's for eyes. I'm going to be doing lines for a cheek. Again, yeah, the one addition I will be making is just to put in some more stuffing because, like, look at that. That is just, it is saggy, it is concave. The body really needs to be filled out more than that. And same goes for the tail. There needs to be stuffing in there. And you can probably see better here than you could before that the head is just, it's understuffed. You can see it's collapsed there. There's just, yeah, not enough stuffing in that. I suppose it doesn't really matter too much where I place these pieces because it doesn't specify in the pattern. They done the dino dirty. If I had to sum up this kit in one word, it would probably be underwhelming. It's not horrendous. It's not great. It falls firmly in the middle. In this instance in particular, the written instructions for the pattern, they were straightforward and easy to follow. But what really bothers me is that with just a few like little tweaks, this could have been so much better. Like, I've already touched on the spikes, or the horns, sorry, as they call them in the pattern. Like, sewed on, they don't look all that bad. You know, they could have been given a bit more shape. Then there's like the body. I've added plenty of stuffing, but it is still asymmetrical, it buckles in places. I do think that is due to a combination of starting off with 8 single crochet in a magic circle, but also stacking the increases. If the increases had have been staggered like every second round, I think that would have helped the shaping a lot, but that's not what the pattern instructed to do. And so you end up with this, the waves, the buckling in the piece. And unfortunately, no amount of stuffing is going to fix that entirely. And the same sort of thing applies to the tail. It's not a bad piece, but just, I think like a couple of rounds of single crochet in between the increase rounds could have shaped that out really nicely. It's not terrible, but it's not great. Again, it's firmly in the middle. This could have been so much better, and I'm even more disappointed than I normally would be, I think, because it's a dinosaur. I love me some dinosaurs, and to see one done dirty like this, it upsets me a little bit. And outside of that, there is the issues I had with the assembly portion of the instructions, but I'm not going to rehash all that. I gave you my thoughts, back when we started the assembly. I think I was on the money when I described this kit as underwhelming. I'm just kind of feeling meh about it. It's not one that I would tell you to outright avoid, but it's also one that I'm not going to encourage you to buy. And speaking of buying it, I got curious and I tried to look up how much this kit would set you back. And unfortunately, I couldn't find the exact dino kit on the Kmart website, but I did find similar amigurumi kits. So there's a whale one I found, there's a bee one, and they will cost you $6 Australian, which is bloody cheap in my opinion. You get what you pay for. But no, I think $6, if you were interested in purchasing one of these kits, $6 is a very reasonable asking price. If anything, I would like to see them charge perhaps a few dollars more and include more stuffing, include safety eyes, include bloody pins. That was another thing I thought of when I was doing the assembly. And I said to myself, you have to mention this at the end. None of the kits that I have tried so far have provided pins. And that is a pretty big oversight because the pins are incredibly useful when it comes to assembling these pieces, especially for like the larger pieces like the tail. You really need pins to hold that in place as you sew. So yep, definitely pins should be included in all the kits because I don't think any of the ones that I've tried so far have included pins. So crochet kit manufacturers, get your shit together, include pins. And that further reminds me, with the sewing, the thick plastic needle was a poor choice. It did make sewing the pieces together a lot harder than it really needed to be. I did consider switching out to my usual, but I thought, no, I'm going to persevere. I'm going to do this kit as intended. But yeah, this was not a great choice to pair with stitches crocheted with a 2.5mm hook. Trying to get the needle through those, not impossible, just more difficult. So I don't know why you would do that to people, probably because these needles are the cheapest to chuck in the kits. Yeah, that was my thoughts on this kit. A solid, not a thumbs up, not a thumbs down, right in the middle. I personally wouldn't be going out to spend my money on this kit, but then again, I wouldn't spend my own money on any kits. I just don't find them appealing, but if you do, maybe this is one you want to check out. Like this little guy, it's not the cutest thing in the world, but he has his own unique appeal, I suppose, especially with those facial details. I don't know why the instructions told me to do it like this, but that's what they said. That is what they said. I suppose I could always get rid of them and just glue on some safety eyes, couldn't I? So that is my thoughts on that kit. This was the yarn I had left over. As discussed already, we ran out of the stuffing entirely. So that is a point in the cons column. But what is not a point in the cons column is And today's featured creator on the hookup is the Handmade Escape. And she says, my name is Caro and I'm a 26-year-old crocheter / knitter from Germany. I started to crochet at the age of 13 and it was an on and off again relationship since then. For the first 10 years, I mostly did amigurumi or small items like scarves, hats, socks, etc. But since 2022, I really got into making clothing items and improved in that part of the hobby. Since I love anime, I include a lot of that in my designs and also include crochet or knitting in my cosplays. Oh, that's awesome. I have seen a few like full crochet cosplays and they're honestly just amazing. It's one of those things I would like to do for myself one day, but I know I wouldn't wear like a full cosplay outfit. It would be a bit of a waste. So I like the idea in theory. In reality, it's probably not worth me doing it. I should stick to projects that I will actually wear / use. But if you would like to check out the Handmade Escapes cosplays and all her other stuff, all those links will be down in the description, and so will a link to the hookup form if you'd like to apply for that for yourself. Thank you all for watching today. Let me know your thoughts on this little guy. Is this a kit that you would purchase for yourself? Do you even like kits in general? I mean, I know I certainly fall in the camp of nope, they're not for me, but then everyone's different, aren't they? So thank you for watching today. Consider subscribing if you haven't already. Like the video if you enjoyed it, share it if you think it's worth sharing, and I will see you in the next one.